Welcome to the Mercury Center Stage podcast, where we get to know those on stage and those behind the scenes. Thanks for joining us. I am Brian Ritter. I'm the Executive Director of the Mercury Chamber Orchestra. And today I'm pleased to welcome Mercury violinist Andrés González. Welcome to the podcast, Andrés.
Hello, everybody. Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
So how long have you been playing with Mercury?
So I began playing in 2003 as I was finishing up my master's at Rice. It's my first concert.
So pretty close to the beginning. We just launched the 20th anniversary season. And so almost from the very beginning.
Yep. And I think it was actually one of the first few times in which Mercury had done more than one full ensemble kind of concert. You know, I think they had some smaller ensembles before that, and it was the first year in which they had a larger ensemble throughout the whole year.
We'll talk a little bit more about your time so far as we look at the 20th anniversary season. But I wanted to focus on just you for a few minutes. Where did you grow up?
So we have a complicated life story. My family is originally from Venezuela, although I have a grandfather who is first generation Italian American, and he went down to Venezuela and met a beautiful lady who's my grandmother. So I have, you know, a little bit of a mixture of everywhere. On my dad's side, there's also from Germany and this and that. So it's a little bit of a cornucopia of cultures around the world. My brother and I were both born in the United States, where we lived for the short portion of our young lives. And then we moved to Venezuela, where I stayed until I was 15. And in 1990, we came back to the US. We first went to Miami, Florida, where I ended up doing my undergrad.
You began playing in Venezuela?
That's correct. So when we first moved down there, I was 2. And I'd lie to you if I told you I have recollection of this, but my family does tell me that when I was 2 and I was taken to the school where my brother was already in, and then I eventually attended, has a conservatory attached to it. And as a 2-year-old, I saw people playing it and say, eh, eh, eh. So when I finally got to the school and I started attending the school, first grade, I started nagging my parents, hey, this would be kind of cool for me to do this. Yeah, you're going to be a lawyer. You know, halfway through first grade, hey, this would be kind of cool. It's like, you're going to be an economist. And then I kept on going. And then we got to second grade, it finally gave up, and they got me a violin, and they put me on violin lessons at the school.
Now, did you choose the violin, or was it chosen for you? How did that work?
Wow. So that's a deep question. I would say that I chose it, given that I was a 2-year-old with not a lot of conscience, and said, that's the one.
Okay, so that's what you were pointing at then.
Yes, exactly. No, it was definitely the violin.
Okay.
And once I started, I mean, now that I have the recollection that I started to ask for an instrument, it was always a violin.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's no question. It was a violin. I don't know why.
Any memory as to, other than seeing it, I guess, in action was probably that inspiration for it? Or
yeah, you know, and my parents used to take me to chamber music concerts all the time as a young one. You know, I do remember being 5 years old and being inside a concert hall listening to a quartet.
Yeah.
You know, what piece they were playing, yeah. But I do remember sitting still and watching and being, you know, mesmerized by the whole experience. It really captivated me at that age.
So you played through all your school days, I imagine, lessons and playing in orchestra ensembles and things?
Yeah, so that school, it's called the Emil Friedman School. And, you know, for a portion of your day, of course, you take your regular courses, but as a student of the conservatory, then you take music theory, you take music history, you're in one of the ensembles, one of the orchestras, and you take chamber music as well. So it was a pretty full day.
Now that sounds like that would be a pretty natural progression into then studying that at the collegiate level. Was that just an obvious transition into that, or evolution into that, or do you remember making a very specific choice?
So there was a question of perseverance. I mean, it's something that I had been doing already since such a young age. But frankly, it's also a question of love for the music making. I just enjoy it too much.
Yeah.
And given that there was a viable path for me to make a living making music and playing music for people, it was kind of a no-brainer. I can tell you that I was in the swim team at the same time I was in the orchestra. And at one point, the two schedules conflicted. And my parents came up to me and said, well, you're gonna have to choose between violin or swimming at this point. And then I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, well, okay, I think violin would be a better choice. So, I mean, this was, I think some of the choices were made for me. And it's not like I didn't have other interests. I mean, I really love architecture, but it just, I kept on going with it. And when I was in Miami, I was finishing up my high school. I went to a very special school, very much like the ones that we have here, HSPVA. It was called the New World School of the Arts. And again, it was a thing where during the morning we would have all of our academic work, and then in the afternoon we would have chamber music, orchestra, theory, and all the other things that one does to get prepared for college. And it just seemed like a very natural pathway. I mean, I was kind of guided towards that.
Yeah. So you wound up at Rice to study violin performance at a higher level. What specifically drew you here to Rice?
So when I began to look for graduate universities, I was looking for specific teachers, and Rice at that point had Sergio Luca, who by all means was a master violinist of his time and a great early music advocate and performer. So well, and then on top of that, Rice gave me a very hefty sum for me to come here. I mean, yeah. It's a very generous university. Not only did I get a full scholarship, but I had a really nice stipend to live on.
Now, if I can ask, where along the way did you meet your lovely wife, Deborah, in your journey here?
So that's a great story. We've just turned 25 years at this point.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, it's going to be 20 years of marriage next week.
Okay.
But we met in Burlington, Vermont, on a ferry going across Lake Champlain.
Oh, get out.
In 1995.
Wow.
And we were on our way to summer camp. And
the same summer camp?
Yes, it was Meadowmount in upstate New York.
Yeah.
And of course, as most boys do when you go to camp, you try to find a good time. And I met this girl on the ferry, and I thought this would be a great little summer fling. But what do I know? At this point, it's been 25 years. Wow. And I remember the day I met her like it was yesterday.
And she's a violinist as well?
Yes. So she was, going to Meadowmount for the same reasons as I was. We had different teachers, but we had similar schedules. So we always found time to be together and do fun things.
Fantastic. Well, many years of wonderful duets.
Yes.
And the rest of your family, they're doing these days?
Yes, we have two kids. Marcel is 13, and he plays the violin. And he does a lot of reading and things on the computer that I have no idea what they are. And my daughter Lucia will be 11 actually in a few days, and she's a wonderful little cellist.
So playing with Mercury 17 years, are there any moments, I know this is a difficult question, but any moments that really jump out as very memorable from on stage?
Well, maybe from on stage there are several. I mean, I remember the one time, and it's likely that you might get the story from other musicians, that we were doing the Four Seasons. Yes. And Antoine turned to the audience, and his Antoine way was giving the spiel about what each portion of the music meant in accordance to what the poetry that Vivaldi likely wrote. And so he was talking about the storm, and he was talking about how there's rumblings and this and that from the lower section with the tremolo. And so we all took it in and said, yeah, what a great little description. Let's go ahead and let's get started. And so we get started and we play the music, and Antoine gets one of these cutoffs, and he waits for a second for drama, and lo and behold, just the rumbling of an actual thunder in the background. So that was a bit of a godsend. That was an interesting moment. You know, we all had to smile, at least. It was really great. And you know, I told you that in 2003, and the project that we were playing at that time was that recording, that very first recording that Mercury did with the Four Seasons, and the Eight Seasons. Excuse me, it was the Four Seasons plus the Four Seasons by Piazzolla. And the last concert that we were going to play before we made the recording was going to be in Pasadena. And on the day that we were going to do the recording, it started pouring. Huh. And half of Houston flooded, as it does.
Yes.
And we were not able to go to the performance. I think one person got there and then got stuck in Pasadena. But the point of the story is that they rescheduled the concert, and the date in which they had rescheduled the concert was exactly the date in which I took my 4 wisdom teeth out. Ooh. So I skipped out on that concert. Yeah. Play that day.
Well, now it's time for a segment we are calling Favorite Five. So let's start off. What is your favorite book?
You know, there are so many to choose from.
There's many of them right behind you there. So
yes. So I love my 1984, and I love my Picture of Dorian Gray, but I think I'm going to go with Les Mis, just because of the sheer, the emotion that I got from being able to read a book that was, you know, as thick as my skull. And on top of that, of course, it's a pretty beautiful and amazing story. So yeah, I'm going to go with that.
I've only read portions of it, but it is some of the scenes in which he describes some of the battle aftermath is just pages and pages of description of that. And it's so fascinating. I found, you know, the musical, the Broadway musical is so famous, but boy, that's just a little sliver of the story. And all those characters are so intertwined, and it's,
well, the development of each one of those characters, which in, you know, Victor Hugo's description sometimes can go on for chapters.
Yes.
But it's so vivid, and the choice of words is so perfect. Yeah. And then, of course, I think he makes that thick because, like you mentioned, there's all of the campaigns, right? The historical portion of France's history, that point in time is so integral to the story. And like you said, that never gets talked about.
Yeah. Well, good choice. So what is your favorite beverage?
So I do enjoy a nice glass of wine, but if I'm making it, then I'm going to go with my jalapeno margarita, my jalapeno infused margarita. It's got cucumber in it, and it's got jalapenos. And I make I squeeze my lime and I infuse them with my jalapenos and with my cucumbers for about 2 hours. And then I strain them and I make my regular margarita mix with, of course, high grade tequila and some nice ice. I pour. Very refreshing, especially this time of year.
Mouth is watering. When is happy hour?
Anytime.
I'll bring my mask. I'm on my way.
Thank you. I'll get you a straw.
Hey, what is your favorite movie or TV series?
Again, if you ask my family and friends, they would go, they'll probably say, well, he probably is going to say one of the Batman movies. Yes, they rank very high up there. I love my Batman. And, there's nothing wrong with a good Star Wars, especially the original trilogy. The prequels are banned in my house, but the rest of the movies are okay. But if I had to pick one movie, and it's probably the movies that I've seen the most in my life, I'm going to go with Blues Brothers.
Blues Brothers. Wow.
Fantastic film. You can't go wrong.
How fun. How about your favorite travel destination?
Without a doubt, it's going to be Paris. I know that sounds very cliche, but my grandmother, well, my grandparents owned an apartment in Paris, and I would go there and spend the summers. And I proposed to my beautiful wife in front of the cathedral there. So I mean, it's being able to spend time, not necessarily as a tourist, but just living everyday Parisian life. It's just it's a fantastic experience. If you ever have the chance to do something and spend 2.5 months or 3 months at a time in Paris, I highly recommend it.
So nice. Finally, hey, what is your favorite classical music recording? Almost impossible question, I know.
Yeah, no. Okay, I tell you one that comes to mind right away. David Oistrakh playing Shostakovich Violin Concerto No. 1 with the New York Philharmonic and Dimitri Mitropoulos conducting.
Oh, wow.
It's the first recording of the concerto. Shostakovich wrote the concerto for Oistrakh, and how could you not like Oistrakh? I mean, anything that Oistrakh ever did was incredible. So that recording, I think I would put very high in my ranking.
Well, there we go. There's Andres's favorite 5. That was fun. Thank you. So I wanted to touch on a little bit about your other role with Mercury. We've talked about you as a violinist, but for the last 6 years or so, you've taken on our education programs and have coordinated all of those. This is a part of what Mercury does that is often unsung. What we do on the stage is very well publicized, but you have been managing some really significant programs that have touched the lives of so many young people over the last 6 years. And so I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that. I guess specifically, we have a residency program at Valley West as part of HISD that has been really nurtured over the last handful of years. Could you tell us about that program?
So that program began 3 years ago, and I had developed a relationship with the principal, and we got to talking in a meeting about his instruments at his school. And I said, well, what are those instruments doing? And said, well, they're just kind of in a closet. So I said, I'd love to see your instruments. And we went to the school, and lo and behold, he had a whole cache of instruments. Some of them had never even been played or tuned or anything, or even set up. So we came up with a budget, and there was funding from different sources, but I have to say that the school really stepped up with their treatment, and we auditioned any of the kids in grades 2nd through 5th that wanted to be part of that first year of the program, with the hope that we would get maybe about 15 kids is what we wanted per class. But the response was overwhelming. We got close to 180 applications. It was very difficult and sad for us to do, but we had to cut it down and get to the number of kids that we could handle at one point. So the program is led by one of our violists, Kathleen Carrington, and she goes in twice a week for 45 minutes for each class. So she's there for 2nd grade, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. And we've developed a great relationship with the school, and we look forward to navigating these difficult times. I can tell you that since the closure was on March 13th of this year, the school reached out to Mercury and said we would like for us to continue the program in some capacity. So we developed a way of interacting with the kids through Zoom. So the courses actually continued, which was in itself very challenging, but we made it work. And to top it off, we recorded as many kids as were able to. They recorded some Twinkle variations and a Mama Cass piece, and you're welcome to all listen to it. It's online. And so this is the end of the year concert for this year's Valley West endeavor.
I so much admire the work that you guys did, particularly in the last part of the year, making sure that could continue for those kids, and definitely check out this video. I mean, it's so heartwarming. I was not more proud of the work that all of you guys did with those kids. The teachers are featured in the video, leading along in different ways. Antoine, our conductor, actually edited the video together, and so much collaboration went into that, and a very beautiful result, showing off that great work. I think I commented that kind of was the silver lining in all of this, was that that's probably not something that folks would have gotten to see, but as a result, we were able to show it off, and so very well done there. Another fond memory that I have too is that the end of that very first year you were describing, after you auditioned all those kids, worked with those kids, got them playing instruments for the very first time. I got to go to see you guys give an end of year celebration concert, and the hundreds of parents that came out, and the cell phones filming their kids. I mean, man, this is what it's all about.
Yeah, it was a beautiful, it has been a very beautiful endeavor. And again, we're going into our 4th year. So we look forward to nurturing these kids and keep them on this musical path. You know, one of the challenges that HIZ has is that there isn't a clear feeder pattern for people to continue their studies. And with this program, what we've been able to do is get those kids to not only get engaged with their instruments, but being able to continue their studies in middle school, as they have the chance to audition to magnet programs such as Pershing Middle School and Maryland Middle School.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of kids that already are in those programs. We're really proud of that.
So great. And so in addition to that residency program, which is really very, very hands-on with a relatively small group of kids, we have another program that typically in the springtime tours around to a variety of schools. And each year it has a little bit of a theme. One of my favorites was what's on Ben Franklin's iPod. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that touring program and what that does every year.
So when you first offered me the position of helming the education programs, thank you very much, by the way. One of the things that I knew that I wanted to do, aside from doing residencies, was to be able to perform in schools. And you can argue that, you know, there are organizations that take the kids over to the concert hall, and that's a great experience. But there's something so much more intimate and reassuring for the kids, for a group of musicians to go into your space, into your school. So I was trying to think of ways in which we can just go to a school and not just, you know, be boring old people playing violin music, but instead that they come out with a little extra nudge of knowledge. So the first program that I wrote was what's on Ben Franklin's iPod. Thought, you know, hey, you know, maybe these kids don't know what an iPod is. They certainly don't know what that is anymore, because I think those are gone. But it was the idea of having Ben Franklin having a conversation with anybody that had anything to do with the Declaration of Independence. So we're talking about 1776, and these cats are getting together. They're about to declare independence from England, but what do they do on their free time? I said, well, they listen to music, and they actually did. So what was the music that was going on at their time? What would they have heard? And a great example, of course, is Thomas Jefferson, who actually played his violin and played a cornucopia of other instruments. And he had concerts regularly at his home. And as a child, I understand, would go down to the governor's mansion and play. So they were engaged in musical activities. So it was one way for us to showcase that connection, you know, that it's actually been around for some time. And so we've done it now. We just did it last, well, I guess it's one season ago. And we've had the joy of having Judy Froh spicing things up. So we had, this time around, we had great costumes, and, you know, the ladies had big wigs and everything like that. And, you know, she helped me with some of the narration. So I think the program is greatly improved. But yeah, it's just my way of trying to figure out how to make this concert that much more interesting to the kids.
Yeah, the linkage to the curriculum too is so important. So taking history and music, putting it together makes it so relevant for the teachers and the kids. And again, what you guys do, and with the help of Judy, who is Mercury's production manager, really can put on a very memorable show and make it a very meaningful experience for all of the kids. And so through that program, we get to reach hundreds of kids in each of these schools.
Yeah, and what we do is that we actually perform it twice. So we play it back to back, and that way we can get the whole school.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, whenever we go into elementary school to play, we get anywhere between 500 to 800 kids.
Yeah.
Into round. So, I mean, there's something to be said for that. And again, we're trying to make these we did a science one. And so we had Einstein and Newton and Galileo on stage, just to name a few. And we made some experiments in this and that. And I asked for the kids to come up and participate. So
this is something you can do at home, by the way. Okay, go ahead. It just wants to go down.
There's a little bit of that going on too. I mean, there's active participation, there's listening. All of our programs come with a guide, a study guide, and they come with a list of points that are relevant to the curriculum so the teachers can use that in their classroom later on.
Well done on that. So in concluding our conversation, I just wanted to get you to reflect a little bit on what music has meant to you during this very unusual time when all of us are having to stay home and we're not able to be together, and we're certainly not able to perform live concerts. And wondered what all of this time has meant for you.
Well, it has been a very emotional and difficult time. We've had the joy of technology and the people with the ability to use that so that we can get together and play music at the same time. But I do miss the warmth of being next to my colleagues and being able to hear them breathe. Smelling the air, hearing the audience and interacting with them. And it's such a unifying, powerful experience. And we're right now, we're deprived of that. But there's no denying that regardless of the kind of music that you enjoy, it's an amazing experience to sit down and listen to whatever it is that you want to listen to. So if you're into, Charlie Daniels, rest in peace, then go at it and enjoy that with your family as best you can. And if you like for a Requiem, then, go, enjoy that. It's just as a performer, I do feel saddened by the situation. But of course, I'm extremely hopeful that better times will come, and I really look forward to making great music with my friends.
Yeah. Well, we can't wait to be back together with you and with all of the wonderful musicians of Mercury performing great music. And it'll happen soon. We'll just have to we'll be a little bit more patient, but we'll get there. So thank you, Andres, so much for this wonderful conversation today.
I've had a wonderful time, Brian, and I really thank you for your time and for your leadership.
Thank you. Well, and thanks everybody for tuning in to the Mercury Center Stage podcast. We'd love to hear your feedback, which you can leave your comments on the Mercury website. We'll be back again soon. Until then, continue to listen to great music.